So welcome everybody to the Martin E. Siegel Theatre Center here at the Graduate Center CUNY. My name is Frank Henschke, I'm the director of the Siegel Center. We are still in the beginning of our season after the film festival. And tonight, at least in my book, we have a very significant and important event, and I think it's really worth at the start of our presentations. As you know, we all have the highest respect of the work of Heiner Müller, who I also personally knew and encountered in my days at the Gießen Theater School in Germany, and it's the year of his 90th birthday. And we had many talks how to celebrate that well, and Antje Oegel, who is a collaborator of the Siegel, actually worked here also as an assistant for the director of program, was instrumental in creating the idea, which we did, to really celebrate it in a way as a close family connection. So we have with us Brigitte Maria Mayer, his wife, and Anna Müller, the daughter of Heiner Müller and Brigitte. And if this would be in Berlin, there would be like 1,000 people. It would be at the Volksbühne. People couldn't get in. And but I think it is. We want to thank you to come to New York and to really share also your experiences, your work, your life with Heiner, and to give us an insight in his work and how you see it also now at the moment, so many years later after his death. So. We are presenting this evening in the following way. It will be a short reading of Heiner Müller's speech at the Müller Material in '79. And Anna will read that. She is a young publisher in Berlin, but also acted in films by Brigitte and is of course close to the world of this. At the moment there is a play by Fritz Kater at the Berliner Ensemble called Heiner 1 to 4. It's a very successful work. It's a dialogue, a work, a collage. I think very much close also to the work of Heiner Müller in the sense how he worked. And we're going to hear a little excerpt of it. I was supposed to see it on Saturday. I was there for the funeral of the great Andrzej Wirth, who was my professor of theater. I just also want to mention him. He was the one who invited Heiner Müller to come to Gießen and changed, I think, a lot also through that work, what he did there at the Gießen University. Both Anna and Brigitte will read from the work. After that, Brigitte will give a presentation on the universe, a little presentation on the universe of Heiner Müller, the way she sees his work, what is significant. And I think this is a very significant and important talk which we were going to experience. After that, and I'm so honored to have them with us here, we have Bonnie Maranka from PJ Magazine and Jonathan Kalb, our colleague from Hunter College, who booked the first books also in America about Heiner Müller, and Bonnie, who is his publisher and also knew him and has the Hamlet Machine within her work of publications. So they will join us and we will just talk a bit about the presentations, what we did, and then open up to a Q&A where we have a lot of time for, and then followed by a little discussion, a little drink afterwards. So I think again, thank you really for coming. This is a very significant event. The work of Heiner Müller is central to modern theater and of postmodern theater and post-dramatic theater, as one could say, in the sense of Hansis Lehmann, their works by Wilson, Heiner Müller, and the Muster Group, and who are really changed the way theater was done before and after, especially with the Hamlet Machine. So this is a truly significant evening, and we want to get an insight we really would normally not get. So again, thank you all for coming and taking time out on a Monday evening here in New York, one of the first warm days. And if you have a cell phone, so just take it out for the moment and make sure it is off. Oops, I'm getting a call this moment, but I think it is off. And the evening will also be live streamed. So for the Q&A, we will give you also a microphone so we can hear it better. Again, thank you all for coming. And Anna.
Thank you for inviting us. Yeah, I'm going to start with the Müller speech from 1979. I regret that I cannot be present at this event, the more so since one of my works is the occasion for this year's gathering. The rehearsals for the premiere of an older play are at a point where my participation is needed more than usual, and besides that I have started work on a new play. In this situation, my appearance in Mülheim would cost me more than just 2 days of work. I therefore ask your understanding for my decision to forego the visit. The wish to hear something from me about the theater of today causes me some embarrassment. The reality of the drama of theater is always the present. And in the present situation, to name examples of more or less equal value, Hamlet is more relevant to me than Godot, Wallenstein more important than Mother Courage. I am talking about plays, not authors. I am still and repeatedly more interested in Brecht's Fatsa fragment than in Shakespeare's Winter's Tale. That the classical texts still work has to do with their reservoir of utopia, that they cannot be written anymore, or once again cannot be written with the endangerment or disappearance of utopia. The subject of more recent drama is a human race that is, whether already or still is a question of one's political standpoint, reduced. Many of the best minds and huge industries are now working to make humanity disappear. Consumerism is training of the masses in this process. Every consumer product a weapon, every supermarket a training camp. This sheds light on the necessity of art as a means to make reality impossible. The gravitational mass of the people, and a capitalism a requirement for politics, is its corrective in a socialist society, the blindness of experience, the badge of its authenticity. The media's cliches about dissidence and or dogmatism miss the reality. Reality does not live in the extremes. What is history for the elites has always still been work for the masses. The cliches serve the appetite for signals of betrayal sent to capitalism from the opposing camp. They guarantee the good conscience of consumption, the freedom of corruption. Only the increasing pressure of authentic experience develops the capacity to look history in the white of its eye. The space-time of art is between the time of the subject and the time of history, the difference a potential theater of war. My difficulty in dealing with dramatic productions in your other German state lies in my post-bourgeois experience with another subject and another history. The black drama in the US is less foreign to me than the capitalist place of mourning of Otto Strauss, in which history appears only in its absence, as a void, or as the movement of capital, which is invisible to the eye. Anxiety about the standard of living as religious experience. Thomas Bernhard's black humor, which in recent times is handled like dynamite by sensitive critiques, who fill them with their private sadness, remain a series of grimly affirmative jokes as long as theatrical market forces drive all the mourning out of the texts. My solidarity belongs to Franz Xaver Kreuz and his heroic attempt to uphold communism as the middle way in the political vacuum that is the center of your world, although my experience shows it to be more like its other. In both German states, drama is a wider field than the theaters are prepared or in a position to explore. An institution like the Mülheim Theater Days is all the more to be welcomed, since it at least makes possible the illusion that in the Federal Republic too there is a broader interest in the production of contemporary drama in the German language. On the whole, writing plays has once more become a lonely business. Idle discussions have turned the theories grey, which can only be changed by politics and not without the political contribution of art. Since Fatzers walk around the city of Mülheim, which reflects in angry sentences on the connection between war and business, it is likely that property relations have changed much in Mülheim. To this extent, the playwriting prize is something like an indulgence. My hope is a world in which works like Germania, Death in Berlin can no longer be written, because reality no longer provides the material for them. In this sense, I thank the city of Mülheim for the prize.
Okay, so there is that piece of Fritz Kater, the play, Heiner 1-4, and so there's an undertitle, and it's like angels flying, and so inspired by angel. So, and that piece I think is, so Armin Petras, which is Fritz Kater, so he was looking for the biography of Heiner and also looking for his own biography, I guess, when he wrote that play. So we have the play has 3 parts, and the first part is a young couple watching a photo book. And that photo book is a book which I did 10 years after Heiner's death. And it's Polaroids, which we did from each other. So from day one, we started to take pictures of each other. It just happened, yeah. So when Heiner died, so I had like hundreds of the Polaroids, even more, and they were all in that cigar boxes. He smoked from, and we put them all in that wooden boxes. And for 10 years, I just put them off in the Schrank, in a so I didn't watch them, never. So then I don't know, one day it just came by chance that I opened it and I met that book. So, and that book was the inspiration for Armin to do like that first part. So it's a young couple watching that book, and so they try to feel in the persons they see. So the second one is a kind of a fictive interview with Heiner, but is a collage of all the interviews, quotes of his interviews he did. So we have to say that the interviews for him was a kind of an expression. So maybe he would Twitter today, so, but in that time he gave interviews nearly every day. It was just a way also to keep his voice in the new German. So, and the third part is like the melting of the author with his object. So and really, so he tries to go into the body, into the soul of Heiner. So what we read now, Anna and me, is from part 2, from the interview part. So, Mr. Müller, how was theater created?
Well, it hadn't rained in a long time. And so a goddess went into the cave and did striptease, and the other god saw this and started to laugh loudly, and then it started to rain again. Yeah, so that's how that started. And then another story was added at some point so that you can memorize the feelings better.
You are directing in Bayreuth and at the Deutsches Theater, and recently you became president of the Academy of the Arts. When do you write your next play?
No idea. Schiller didn't write a play for 7 years once. So what?
In your work, it is often said that life is a slaughterhouse, and only the biggest slaughterers and schemers are successful in the battle for survival. That can only change if the model on which the world is built is changed.
Nice summary. At some point I noticed that I'm writing something for which there's no stage anymore, or not yet, for me. What happens right now started with Stalingrad. It is way more interesting for me to write about Stalingrad than about the fall of the wall. What looks so spectacular right now is in the end only a result of erosions and changes that happened underground a long time ago. I once met a black man from California who was in Berlin on a scholarship and was about to write a novel, and he said, "The fact I'm here is due to Hitler." History is always moving in mysterious ways. You never know what the outcome is. The immediate result is usually not the final result. There's no dramatic subject on the surface. You have to dig deeper. I am bored by democracy. As a writer, one is affected by a basic experience. And that happened for the most part before puberty. My basic experience was the fascist dictatorship, the state as a violent force. I have often reflected upon it later when I went from East Berlin, Friedrichstraße, to Zoologischer Garten with my privileged passport. That was like an emerging from a deep water with high pressure into shallow water. The pressure was released, and then you get diverse paralysis, and you start getting dizzy. I always had the feeling when I was in the Western countries that what was happening there is actually not my problem. When I came back leaving Friedrichstraße, I felt this other body, this knot, that's dark, The hard work that's ineffective that made this body. The heaters, the steel workers, the washing woman, the soldiers in their felt coats. Of course, this was a productive situation for a playwright. The core of it is, of course, Jenny's view. To be happy about every leg, about every broken bit of the world. In a harmonical world, one doesn't need to write. Art has something cannibalistic. Art isn't necessarily something good or humane. Perhaps at some point there will be a society that doesn't need art anymore. A humane society, but at the moment it is still needed. I still need it. Why art? That's not my question. I can get by well with what there is right now. I am not dependent on anyone having anything against me anymore. Right now, it is all about writing what I always wanted to write in the time that I've left.
What is going on with Stalingrad? Is this an obsession of yours?
That was a purgatory of capitalism together with Auschwitz. Since then, they can do whatever they want. There are no limits anymore. The limits is overrun. The purgatory is a car wash. Everything that's coming doesn't look so bad. It's somehow cute. You can put it in the opera and sell it again. That's why the opera is so crowded. The daily grind and the band can't be so bad when the night with Mozart is so pretty.
So is the fall of the wall the liquidation of the victory of Stalingrad for you?
I don't believe in victories anymore. The victory is always the end. Nothing is harder than to come to terms with a victory. Everything remains in status quo for a short time only, and then it keeps turning. The closure of Stalingrad was the model for the Eastern Bloc. Confinement from the outside and destruction on the inside. Perhaps Stalingrad was already the end of the Soviet dream, or better, his ice box. At the moment, it is about preventing future. That's the principle of capitalism that is based on competition and not on the social relations that have grown. The social in capitalism did only come about because of communism. The fear of Stalinism gave the unions their strength. Now, the enemy is gone, and capitalism can be shaped more asocial. That will happen automatically. You can't stop the war of immigration except with walls, but they won't help long.
Why are there so many angels in your stories?
You need angels when all looks bleak and there's no more.
Okay. Yeah, thanks again for having us here. And so that is my first PowerPoint presentation in 54 years. And so, okay, so let's start, yeah?
Heil Macbeth, König von Schottland!
Orpheus gepflügt. Ja, was ist das?
Orpheus gepflügt. Orpheus, der Sänger, war ein Mann, der nicht warten konnte. Nachdem er seine Frau verloren hatte, durch zu frühen Beischlaf nach dem Kindbett oder durch verbotenen Blick beim Aufstieg aus der Unterwelt, nach ihrer Befreiung aus dem Tod durch seinen Gesang, so dass sie in den Staub zurückfiel, bevor sie neu im Fleisch war, erfand er die Knabenliebe, die das Kindbett spart und dem Tod näher ist als die Liebe zu Weibern. Die Verschmähten jagten ihn mit Waffen ihrer Leiber, Ästen, Steinen. Aber das Lied schont den Sänger. Was er besungen hatte, konnte seine Haut nicht ritzen. Bauern, durch den Jagdlärm aufgeschreckt, rannten von ihren Pflügen weg, für die kein Platz gewesen war in seinem Lied. So war sein Platz unter den Pflügen.
So this impressive Macbeth production in the adaptation from Heiner is directed by Michael Thalheimer, and we can currently see it at the Berliner Ensemble. Orpheus gepflügt is part of an interview with Alexander Kluge, recorded 1992, one day before Anna's birth. You see me there. So, and if you are interested, or I think most of you will know it, that all these interviews you can have on the Cornell University website. So it's really always nice to look at them. So why those two works? So what I really like is that Heiner is rewriting historic and mythological material by adding an unseen class, an undescribed class. So, and there's also something which, like my work and Heiner's work, or what we had in common, that was kind of work on myth. And so that was something, that was a common room we had, which we could live in together. And also the painting of Renaissance, so we traveled a lot in Italy. That was also a big inspiration for us. Heiner and I, we met at the Frankfurt Book Fair 1990, so nearly 1 year after the fall of the wall. And so, and he gave me that little note at the, in Frankfurt just to find him, to find his home in Berlin, so which became then also my new home. And like I already said, we were, from the beginning, we took photos of each other, sometimes also like selfies, what we call it today. And always with a Polaroid camera. And I already told you, it came out a book which is called Der Tod ist ein Irrtum, so death is an error, at Surkamp Verlag. So, yeah, and so that was the first poem I became from him. And yeah, so, and more I learned more about him. I mean, so what country he came from and what he had lost. So, and what he first lost is his writer's room. So the historic condition for his dramatic work. And the end of his country and the end of this writer's room he had already foreseen in his plays.
Aus dem Namen der Freiheit wird der Schrei nach dem Sturz der Regierung.
Wir dürfen uns nicht mehr organisieren lassen.
Man beginnt, die Polizisten zu entwaffnen.
Wir müssen uns selbst organisieren.
Stürmt 2, 3 Gebäude.
Die Preise werden steigen, die Löhne kaum.
Ein Gefängnis, eine Polizeistation, ein Büro der Geheimpolizei.
Die Daumenschrauben sollen angezogen werden.
Hängt ein Dutzend Handlanger der Macht an den Füßen auf.
Die nächsten Jahre werden für uns kein Zucker schlecken.
Die Regierung setzt Truppen ein, Panzer.
So, what we see is Heiner on 1989 on the Alexanderplatz. So where it was like a euphoric atmosphere. So, and people really disgusted what he said. So all people said like, boo, and don't say that now. So, and I liked that collage with Hamlet Machine. And so Hamlet Machine was then the first play for me to see from him and directed by him in Deutsches Theater. And so I came there and I've never seen something like that. So there was such a crowd of people running into the theater that evening that the staff lost control and hundreds of people swarmed into the theater hall taking over every square meter they could get. So the atmosphere was highly charged, and the first time Hamlet's line, "the time was out of joint," made sense to me. So never again I experienced a moment like that later in theater or in art that is like a theater play, and a historic situation is going in one thing, so that the historic time breaks into the play. That was really a thankful experience for me. So, and so the 1989 revolution is a revolution that ended prematurely, as the Western system took over very fast. So the revolution in the East never made it beyond the round tables. And there's a quote by Heiner which explains exactly that. It's not a problem of content, it's a problem of velocity. Heiner tried to save what he could. He became head of the Academy of Arts East and prevented its liquidation. He established an early form of social media by giving interviews commenting on the political situation every day. And he became head of the Berliner Ensemble, trying to preserve room for non-commercial art and trying to express the new political situation. So unfortunately, there's no video material, as the Berliner Ensemble was not able to provide it. I'm sorry, but I have some photos only for you. So that is the first production he did there, Duell, Traktor Fatzer. It was like a collage. And and it was all about a failing revolution. So, and the critics were not at all amused, as Duell Traktor Fatzer put disillusionment with the flowering landscape of United Germany on stage. So, and then already like the best time in the Berliner Ensemble from the atmosphere was finished. So then he did quartet, later on with Marianne Hopper, and later on Arturi Ui, but that were already calculated successes. And yeah, what I already said, like that euphoric atmosphere from the beginning was very soon gone. So, but there were, let's say, other things happening. So, and yeah, Heiner got father. So, and he started to write again. So, and mainly poems then in that time, but awaiting the new play. So that was always like every day, when can I write my new play? But it still took a bit time. So, and that is a poem he wrote for Anna, which is also part of the play of Fritz Kater. So you can see it here in a manuscript of him. And along the way, he revolutionized opera with a century staging of Tristan and Isolde, which became iconic and ran for 8 years in Bayreuth and was resumed last year at Opera Lyon. He transformed Tristan and Isolde into a bright, perfect abstraction where maybe the romance between Tristan and Isolde is the least important relationship of the play. So we see now part 3, a little piece of part 3 of the opera, and which in a destroyed room of the war. so, but it was like that opera in Bayreuth. It was something, one of the really things we did every year. So every summer we went to Bayreuth because it's called like a Werkstatt, like a work on progress, and so the directors come every year to their stagings and change little things or like go on with the work. So, and that was really always an important time. So, in 1994, Heiner was diagnosed with cancer, and in a serious operation which saved his life, but it saved it only for 1 more year. So to recover, we spent 3 months in California at the Villa Aurora, where he finally was able to write a new play called Germania 3, Ghosts at Dead Men, a rough ride through German history. So we see us here like in an adaptation of Las Meninas, the family, and with Betty Freeman, with little Anna, and with Peter Sellers, me in the mirror, and Heiner. And yeah, so before he was then supposed to premiere the play himself at the Berliner Ensemble, Heiner died the 30th of December 1995. So, yeah. Leander Hausmann premiered the play in Bochum as a childlike German comic. Surely one option, but for me the real premiere of Germania 3 I experienced last year in Lyon, the opera composed by Alexander Raskatov, from which I show you the Hitler monologue now. So I'll just show you another highlight from the last year, which was Dimitar Gotchev's staging of Cement at Residenztheater Munich, which is still in the repertoire there. And we watch a rehearsal scene where Dimitar himself cheers on the actors to build the new cement factory. At the moment, in Germany, we have regular stagings. Mostly it's smaller houses, and if it's the big house, it's mostly a Shakespeare adaptation. And 3 days ago, there was a premiere in Deutsches Theater with one of his early plays, which are rarely played, and Die Umsiedlerin. And as the critics I got sent that morning, it was successful, but we haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to see it. And so what else do we do at the moment? So we plan a new edition now with Surkamp, and it's an edition with the plays and the manuscripts, a kind of manuscript edition, because so the manuscripts of Heiner are highly interesting, because so very often they really look like paintings, art pieces, so he was writing a lot and designing a lot of it. And for this we bring together in May all from Müller experts from all over Germany. So, and to start that new edition that is supposed then hopefully to be ready for his 100th birthday, 2029. So what is else on the stages? So it's not that it's more or less, it's mostly, so in the last year it was like, wie sagt man, frequently. So, but what I see at the moment, there's like a bigger interest also on the actor schools and the director schools. So, and we have contact with some young actors and directors from Ernst Busch, for example, and they have a little group now where they just play or just staging plays of Heiner, and it's, for me, it's nice to have that contact like with people who I can say never met him, but just live in his works. So, and we really enjoy and appreciate that contacts, and sometimes we give them the chance in my studio to make a little staging there and bring people together. So that's what's running at the moment. And last but not least, I show you art piece of mine, a video installation, where Anna is a video installation, is after Anatomy Titus' Fall of Rome. And as I don't have the trailer in English, so I just show you the intro, and the intro is a piece also of Germania 3. It's a Kriemhild monologue, and it's spoken by Anna, and then it starts Anatomy Titus' Fall of Rome. So.
Ihr habt mein Fleisch gegessen und mein Blut getrunken, durch 10 Länder mich gejagt, in diese Hochzeit meinen anderen Tod und meine Haut gespannt auf eure Trommeln. Seid meine Gäste jetzt zur letzten Mahlzeit. Esst eure Toten und löscht euren Durst mit ihrem Blut. Der Tisch wird reich gedeckt sein. und feiert eure Hochzeit mit dem Nichts, das eure Wohnung ist im Reich der Toten. Ein neuer Sieg verwüstet Rom, die Hauptstadt der Welt.
Okay.
Jonathan and Bonnie, if you come and join us.
Was du mein Mobile?
First, so first of all, again, thank you for coming all the way over from Berlin. They joined us. They came to New York on Tuesday, and I think had some meetings and walk. They met with Tony Kushner and Toshi Z and many others. First, how does it feel to be in New York?
It feels very good.
Is it?
Okay, anschalten. It feels very good. No, it feels very good. So because it's such a long time that I have been here, and yeah, it's about like 12 years or something, and I really enjoy New York, and it's so I forgot how I loved it in a way, but it changed a lot for sure in that years, and I really love a lot the hood where we live in Chinatown, which is really nice. It reminds me on Kreuzberg 20 years ago in Berlin. So, and yeah, I mean it's the next gentrification, I guess. So, but yeah, it's, I mean, it's such a different feeling. So it's so, in a way, it's, for sure it's more rough here, but in a way it's also bigger space, it's more open. Yeah, they have like people from all nations here. And so, and I really miss that in Berlin sometimes. Yeah, I would wish like to see more people like that, like here in Berlin. No. And that the situation is open like here, so.
So preparing for the evening, the 90th birthday of Heiner Müller, which would have been, what?
9th of January.
The 9th. How do you look at his work now with some distance also from it? Has it changed? Is it the same or?
Okay, I think that is so he's a kind of a chronist of the ideological systems of the 20th century. So and just also if you see the language, so the language is like Robert Wilson once said is like the plays or his language is like a stone. So and you can put it everywhere. It works everywhere. So and yeah, I like that picture. So and but I think so. It's very strong and people give attention to it in Germany, but on the other way, you see for sure that very young people, so in school, so they do not learn anymore a language which is in, wie sagt man, in Reimen.
In rhyme?
In rhymes. So, and for sure it needs education to understand the plays. So there's a rhythm for sure, but it needs education, and education is not at the moment what people really get somewhere. So it's getting less in Germany too. And so that makes me sometimes thinking what there will be in the future. On the other side is like so many people who then are really interested in the work and they really live in it, and they see like they see an option out of capitalistic system in the texts, which is really important. And yeah, so it lives on, and I'm happy that it lives on, and I think it will get more important the next years, even also with the situation in Germany. So I can imagine that, because that what we had now, what I said, that retained revolution. So now we have the process going on. It's the same people who were demonstrating '89. We are one folk, yeah. And now it's all right-wing people, so but it's the same people. So, and there will be some big conflicts, I guess, in the next years. Yeah.
And a question to you: How does it feel for you to read the text of your father in New York, and how do you relate to them?
Well, it was my first reading in English, so very different.
Well
I mean,
done,
I'm not that used to his text in English, of course. It's a little more difficult because the rhythm is very different, and I'm kind of used to the rhythm already. We do a lot of readings now, and no, but still, I think for me myself, I was for a long time I was kind of scared to read his plays and to read his texts, because I was scared I wouldn't understand them. And I guess at some point I just thought maybe understanding is not the most important part also. And what actually really helped me is to read all of the interviews with him, because it's a very different way to get to know him and to also understand his plays. And I do think that they're in our time now more actual. Do you say actual? Not really. Current. Yeah, more current than ever. Yeah.
Maybe a question to both Jonathan and Bonnie, maybe with you first. What comes to your mind when you heard Brigitte talk about Heiner's work?
I was thinking how so many of the themes, the political themes, the concept of history and also utopia and its opposite, dystopia, seem so current today, especially the way that people are having a lack of confidence in democracy and talking, even in this country, about socialism. And it seems like the certain political dynamic, it's very current now, very true. But I was thinking of something else too. It seemed to me, and I know that I either mentioned this to Heiner or else I wrote about it somewhere, that there's a strong dimension in Heiner Müller's work about the future belonging to women. But the problem for me always with the stagings, and I recall, you know, the Hamlet machine very well, and going to the rehearsals, and actually, you know, telling Bob Wilson, that there was a strength of characters, and Heiner wrote extremely strong women, some of the strongest since Greek drama, or the Duchess of Malfi, but they didn't have they refused to stage them with that strength. They remained strong in the text, but often the existential part, like say with Hamlet, I'll give you an example. With Hamlet Machine, Hamlet's existential crisis was staged downstage in the front, but Ophelia's speeches, and they are some of the so strong, her speeches, and that has to do with the future of women, they were staged further upstage. And I remember going to rehearsal, and Bob Wilson asked me what I thought, and I said, I told him exactly that. And that's what I feel, that the strength of the women didn't always come out in the performances, but they were there in the text. And I feel that Heiner thought about the future of the world being attached to women. I don't know, did you feel the same?
Definitely, I'm actually planning a book on that.
Yeah, she's just planning a book on that.
Oh, so there.
So I totally agree.
Jonathan, same question to you. Hearing from both, and especially from Brigitte's talks. What are you?
I loved your talks and your presentation. It was very special for me. I love that you brought in clips from productions, because Heiner's work doesn't just live on the page. You have to kind of see it living in the theater. When you think about the presence of Heiner Müller, you think about the way that he kind of took the German theater by storm in the 1980s and 90s. It's hard to explain to people today what his presence was. He was just everywhere in the German landscape. I'm trying to think if there even could be a figure in the American culture who would be equivalent. I don't think so, because what you see in these clips is how much the theater itself means to the German people. André Wirth, our common friend who just died, once he enjoyed saying that, good or bad, the Germans take their theater seriously. They just go. It's one of their means to talk to themselves about themselves, and they go. It's not that they always love it or like it. It's that someone like Heiner Müller appears on their landscape, and he is so wonderfully self-taught, and he's reinventing the theater through texts that challenge the theater to go beyond what it has done before. And they just go. They go because they enjoy talking to themselves about hating it or loving it. And it continues to this day with a few dips, but now it's coming back. Who would that be in the American landscape? You know, it would be, it would never be a playwright, first of all, because we don't think about the theater that way. But it would be someone who was able to speak to us about what is going on in our culture deeply in a very pithy, aphoristic way, to be quoted all the time on public issues, and then to have premieres every couple of years about important new plays. I don't know that we have that here. And so it's something that we watch and sort of envy about the German landscape.
If Susan Sontag would have written plays that had the same reception, perhaps she might have been someone like this. But what will be the future? I mean, we all think about what this will be, his legacy be, in a way, as you also said, people do not think anymore in structures of Greek dramas. They might not even know the names. They don't understand that special situation of East Germany and West Germany, being a writer in the East of tragedy, where the audience was able to read between the lines, which has been gone. And even Heiner said, I can't write anymore. So what do you all think? Where lies the significance? What is the point of entry for new audiences?
I do want to say interviews again.
So the interviews is one thing.
Because not that many people also know them all.
No,
the
so
big part of his
no,
work
what
there.
we
Yeah,
did,
they're a big
okay,
part of his work,
what we did is like we 1 year ago we edited a book at Surkamp. It's
2
called
years ago now, to be honest.
2 years ago now already. Yeah, it's not enough for everyone, and it's let's say Heiner Müller for beginners. Yeah. So with some interviews, some pieces of important plays, prose, lyrics. So just to meet him. Yeah. And that is already so, it's already printed the 3rd time now. It works good. So, and the thing is, you can think a lot, but I think, so my thing, I'm a more practical woman, so, and what I plan also with Anna, we want to make a school book for Heiner. And so we're just still thinking how we can do it.
I mean, we've already worked on 3 plays.
Yeah, so she already worked with 3 plays, and the idea was that, so we have so we know a lot of actors who are always like, we call them and they come and read for us, so, and we were thinking to make a tour with schools, just to bring that kind of text to the people. So, and where else should you start than at a school? So that's one of our ideas. Just to keep the work alive, and for sure, I mean, for sure now what we plan is more to bring him more in the digital century. So, and there is now a new website on, and it's done by MDR. It's kind of it's TV and radio thing, German state thing.
Der Müller Baukasten.
The Müller Baukasten, and it's really like, you can get lost in this. It's like you made one point, you have one quote, and they go you this, and then see you that, and that you really can lose yourself.
And it's like a big mind map, maybe.
It's a big mind map of Müller, and I mean, it's still a good country, people producing things like that, because it's a lot of work, and it does not bring money in the first time, and so things like that happen, and we want to do more like...
also we do more readings now, which is very important. We
More
kind of
readings.
forgot about that for
Yeah,
years.
so, which we enjoy it now.
Yeah.
Already, yeah.
I do, at least, very much. I do at least very much.
Readings of his plays, or readings of the
Yeah,
interviews, or
Both.
Everything,
Yeah.
excerpts
Yeah.
of
So
everything.
people
yes.
ask and we come, and then we make a program. Yeah. So
With
and-
actors, without actors.
yeah, mixed. Yeah.
I mean, just the Silber auf Lande just opened. There's this play. Are there more plays out in German landscapes at the moment in theater again about Heiner Müller or his plays, or is it the same or more or less?
So yeah, I mean it's what I already said. It's like always the same level. It could be more, but should not be less. So, but what there is new that people make, they don't make anymore one play. So people make collage. So they take like a bit Shakespeare, a bit Müller, or a bit I don't know. And first, we were not thinking that this is so good, but I mean, if someone is really intelligent and is really good in his work, it comes back to Heiner's idea of material. And especially for sure, Castor, for example, he makes like that 7-8 hours stagings, and mostly 1 hour is Müller. So you have a lot of that things that to be a play in the play. And and what I said, it's Shakespeare adaptations, but what very often is coming is Philoctet, which is interesting for me. So because it's not the easiest one. And then we have like quartet, Auftrag, so on. But also people make collage of the prose, Mommsen's block, or so, things like that. Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you think? What it will be is in the US also? What is his, or could it be?
Actually, I wrote an essay on Heiner Müller in the American Stage for a handbook whose publication has been delayed. These Heiner Müller scholars, Janine Ludwig and Florian Becker, you probably know them. I did some research on this, and I discovered things that surprised me. With Janine, I tried to track down some statistics on Heiner Müller in the United States, and I found 162 productions of Müller between 1975 and 2017. That's more than 3 times as many productions as we had of Brecht in this country. That's remarkable. The vast majority of them were in New York, but that doesn't matter. What it showed me is that there was a real significant wave of Heiner Müller devotion here in the States too. And I'm quite sure that most of these productions did not apply for the rights either, because I asked the publishers how many contracts they had. And so this was real sleuthing, trying to find.
We should look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if the same thing in China, for example.
It's the same, yeah, but still, you know, most of these theaters, they have taken Heiner and done what they want with him, which is what he would have wanted. There's this a theater in LA called City Garage, which did not Lessing's Dream of Sleep, but this was during George Bush's, it was George W.'s Dream of Sleep, you know? They did Landscape with Argonauts, and it was all about LA. And that's exactly what he would have wanted, for them to take it and make it into something of their own. So I think although we're in a kind of an ice age right now with Heiner, not very many productions, I'm 100% sure that there will come a time, I don't know when people will need him again, and they will reach for him, and it will come back. I don't know how much it will come back, or whether we could call it a vogue, but he's just too significant and important a writer to just stay buried for a long time. But in the United States, almost everything is neglected. Everything of value in the dramatic canon is neglected. So it's not like he has a special status here.
You know, one of the things I would say, though, is that we've had at PAJ Publications, Hamlet Machine and other texts for the stage in print since the 80s, and it continues to sell hundreds of copies a year. So it means that it's very steadily in the curriculum. That play is also anthologized in a lot of contemporary drama books. So there are 3 volumes of plays, 4 volumes of Heiner Müller's works in print. There had been a Heiner Müller reader, which sold out. I'm hoping to do something, I'm not sure exactly what, in the fall issue. And one of the things I was curious that you mentioned Tintoretto, because I have an essay by Etel Adnan, with whom he worked on the French part of the Civil Wars, Wilson's production. And she wrote about Heiner Müller and Tintoretto, an essay which I just have to have translated into French. And I thought that would be very interesting because of Heiner's, the anniversary of his death, and Tintoretto's 500 years in 2019. So I want to do something unusual. I don't know what material is around in English. And we don't handle the performance rights, so I don't know what rights might be coming up. But you know, to go back to your point, Jonathan, I think it would take almost something like Ivo van Hove, you know, to do a Heiner Müller play or something to get a really big production and a lot of attention again. Some really. Well,
yeah, I think it should be said that the back-to-back events of your publication of the Hamlet Machine volume and Bob Wilson's Hamlet Machine production in 84 and 86, this is what launched that sort of Heiner Müller wave in the States. Yeah. It came, you know, from those 2 initial.
So we need another big commercial, not commercial, but I mean a big production on a big scale that a lot of people see and wake up to that. And he's one director who would come to mind because of the, you know, his politics. Yeah. But it would take something like that. We really sorely need, you know, more Heiner Müller productions, or even just one really important staging.
Our hope is to engage the Wooster Group. You know, we have been in contact with her. Hopefully you're going to meet with them in Berlin. They engage with Kantor's work, with Forsyth, I think also Kortalski. So that, I think, would be a significant contribution, and everybody, I think, would come and go. But Brigitte or Anna, I know there was the Gorky production of, I think, the Hamlet Machine. I haven't seen it, but I heard a lot about it. But can you tell us a little bit about, I think, the Exile Ensemble? What firstly about that ensemble, what they do, but also what did you think of that production? But describe it a little bit, what they did.
Okay.
We didn't love it.
We didn't love it.
Okay.
No, the thing is,
It was successful.
That,
it was successful.
Yeah, it's very successful. It's not about, it's not all about success. The thing is that in theoretical, that was a big thing. The theory, like to have Hamlet machine, and to put it as a transition paper on migration. It absolutely works. And a friend of, and I have a good friend who was the leader of the Exile Ensemble, who left it after that production. That's Ayam, and Ayam Majid Agda, so Syrian guy. And so the thing was that it was just aesthetically not good done. It was like a theater, a school theater. It was like it was the big idea, but the big idea had no expression in art.
The Exile Ensemble is like refugees and people.
Yeah, it's like
who
it's
do theater at the Gorky.
The thing it's enough. It's a refugee theme, so it's good, but it's not what I am wanted, and also not what we see. So it's Gorky is a high class theater, so they can't do like that. They can't act like that. So, but
it wasn't that bad. Right?
So,
it wasn't that bad.
What did you think about it, Anna?
No, I mean it was a fun evening.
Yeah.
So.
But it's so.
I mean, the thing is with Gorky, always. I do think that it's important that it's a fun evening for everyone and people are coming and they like it. In the end, it doesn't really matter if I like it or not. So I'm always grateful for every production at Gorky, even if I don't 100% completely agree with it. Because I know that they have a lot of young people coming there. People are very interested. And it's a very different vibe than, for example, at Berlin Ensemble or at the Volksbühne now, Deutsches Theater.
Isn't it led by a woman?
And it's also led by a woman, which is definitely part of that.
Yeah, it's even a Turkish woman. So
yeah.
I mean, she came like when she was small to Germany, and that is really so. She's the first Turkish woman to lead a theater ever in Germany. So
yeah. No, she does an amazing job.
Great job. Yeah, we have really.
They're actually coming. She's coming.
Yeah, she's
to our Penguin
right?
Voices. We're going to show 6 plays.
No, she's a
Gorky, and she's going to come
Kurdish fighter. Yeah. I really love her. Yeah.
Will the Arturo Hui production remain in the Berliner Ensemble under the new leadership?
Yeah, it's still there. The Arturo.
That's a great production.
Yeah, I have problems with that production. It's a great art.
Love it.
She loves it. So, but I knew the story, then I knew that Heiner did not want to do it. He was like forced to do it because it needed to have a success, and for sure. And then the financial director said, "Oh, let's do something about Hitler, the most loved statesman of the 20th century. So yeah, let's do Arturo Hui. People will come." And it was like that. So. And
people are still coming.
So I mean,
sold out every time, and it's been I think 300 shows now.
It's more. I think even 500.
500. Oh yeah, I think we had 500.
No, I mean it's a good production also from the form and everything. But for me, it's always the thing that I knew how hard for him it was to do it, because he wanted to do his own plays. So and.
Can I just say that Heiner said something similar about his quartet with Marianne Hoppe to me, which I loved, and I tell him that I love this production, and he says, "Blah," because it's a hit. That means to him it was evidence that it was, it was popular. He just couldn't stand it, and so what am I supposed to say? That I didn't like it? I liked it. But
I probably would have liked it. Did I see it?
No, I mean, if I wouldn't have been like so near to Heiner, I would have liked all 3 productions, not the thing. But I know that also it already started with quartet, and Marianne Hoppe, she was not that easy. So every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, she called. So. And I was on the phone, and I said, "Oh, Heiner, I want to talk to Heiner." So, and that was really like she made us all. Crazy.
Well, but what I have to say about the Arturo Hui, though, is that for me, it's a play where I can take people that are not familiar with theater, or even people that say, I never do theater, I don't like theater, and I can take them there and they're gonna love it and they're gonna rethink their perception of theater, which I like.
What about the international reception beyond the US, let's say Brazil, South Africa, or you did mention China, I'm sure you hear of the requests. So how is it and how are translation? Is the entire catalog of it translated? How is that, what's happening?
Okay, so there's some, let's say, kind of control for South America. There's a lot of things which are also with contract, everything. But in China, someone sends me a photo. Oh, there's a production of Heiner, and I thought, oh, maybe you can ask for a translation. I would be interested. so there is not an official thing in China. So people translate, play. Mostly we don't know it. So but there's a lot of things in Frankreich, in France, going on, and yeah. So, but mostly South America is strong. Yeah.
In what country in South America is it?
It's mostly Brazil. Yeah.
Good. Maybe we open it up, Michael. If you could put a bit of light to the audience, and so if we have some questions or just remarks or a statement, maybe shortly say who you are, and you have a chance to ask Brigitte or Anna, Jonathan or Bonnie. So, hello. Is it on? Is it clicked on?
Yes, it seems so.
No, but we can hear you very good. So.
But if we're streaming it.
Okay, now we got it. Okay. Need to reset. My name is Nicholas, and I'm a student here at the Graduate Center. I was wondering, I heard and came across in my research about this production that Heiner directed as the Berlin Wall was coming down, of Hamlet and Hamlet Machine together. And the references that I came across were vague, but in this ongoing conversation of mixing together the classics and his own interpretations, I wondered if any of you had insights about what that was like or the motivations for doing it.
Okay, I think that Heiner was, so he always said, I'm not interested like only in the current time capsule. So for him it was always important to have like a yesterday, a today, and a tomorrow. So, and that's what I said is, one thing is rewriting mythological pieces, historic pieces, like rewriting in adding, for example, at Macbeth, the peasants, so, and peasants, Bauern, yeah. And so, and also like, so Heiner was someone who was like, we can say connected to a kind of destiny, to a kind of mythology, to a kind of, I don't know, but he was connected to something. So, and I think he took that connection very serious. So, and so he also wrote himself and his time in a bigger context, into a bigger context. So I think that was one of the motivation. And he lived in a very big room. So that was like the feeling when he died, I had the feeling that the sky is coming on my head down, because that room was lost in that moment. And I had really hard to work to get it for myself, a bigger room again. So, because you lived in that temple of him, of his head. So, and he had a tremendous remembering of everything. So you ask something and he knew it. Everything he was reading, he kept. So, and he knew so much things, which was for me like, yeah, a universe. So, and I think that he lived in that big universe, and that meant that he is to live with other dead persons, with dead persons. So he had like one of the last notes he left in his working room before he died is, you will have to learn to live without me, alone with the other dead people in the library. So, wrote this. Yeah.
Can I just say that was an extraordinary event, Hamlet Machine. It was in rehearsal when all of the sudden events of the fall of 1989, you know, were in play. And it changed because the rehearsals were going on while the politics were suddenly budging that had been frozen for so long. And it just is this extraordinary coincidence that this author who had done this extraordinary adaptation, you could say, of what we call our greatest play, Hamlet Machine, happened to be working on this at that time and thinking of it as a drama of the absolute impasse for the intellectual in the face of frozen history. And so there's a wonderful film about that. It's by Christoph Rüther. It's called The Time is Out of Joint. It's all about the way that rehearsals were infused with the politics of the moment and how everything got colored with reality. It was 8 hours long, and it was just an extraordinary experience, as I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. I saw that.
I just wanted to say something about what you said about history. If I recall, Heiner's thought that we hadn't yet come to history, that this was all prehistory. And he always said that there are many more dead than living.
Yeah.
But I believe that he felt we did not attain history. I don't remember exactly the reasoning for that, but he felt we were still living in prehistory. Yeah, that just came to mind when you talked about that. I also just wanted to tell you that I wrote a little poem, which was one of his last poems. It's in the Heiner Müller Reader. It's called Empty Time. He wrote a few poems and things his last few years. And this says, "My shadow of yesterday has been burnt by the sun in a tiresome April. Dust on the books. At night the clocks run faster. No wind from the sea, waiting for nothing." It's called Empty Time.
Thank you.
And I think he was in New York, right, when the wall
He was in New York when the wall
actually came down. It was
Yeah.
some kind of an interview with a late-night local cable station. We showed, I think, that clip, the film, also from Christoph.
No, you know what it was, because I was with him that time. He came to New York with Heiner Goebbels. They were doing at the kitchen The Man in the Elevator, which is a part of Auftrag. What was it? The task?
The task?
Or the mission?
Yeah, he was here for the mission, but actually the moment when he heard it, he was in a strange TV show, and I think Christoph has it in his documentary.
Yeah, I think he came like 2 nights after. I forget, I'd have to look up the date. But this piece was at the kitchen, and I remember him sitting at the table, and he said, I'm in shock. I never thought this would happen. But there were very famous jazz musicians who were playing with him. Don Cherry, I think is the subject of The Green Book, right? That film now?
Oh, that was him?
Arto Lindsay and Heiner Goebbels. And yeah, they came to New York like a day or 2 after the wall had fallen.
It was a Heiner Goebbels production.
Heiner Goebbels, it was a kind of
and he was reading
Heiner was reading at the table,
yeah,
reading the text, and it was a kind of a music piece. Yeah.
It was an extraordinary time for him, as I'm sure Brigitte knows better than anybody. He responded to the fall of the wall with a combination of fascination and panic and analysis, he gave these interviews at the time that were published as books that were so penetrating. One was called Zur Lage der Nation, the other was called Jenseits der Nation. They were never published in English, but they were the most extraordinary, just penetrating analyses of what was going on in the world, what was really moving suddenly, like a glacier falling off the edge of a coast. And then he looked inside himself and asked about why am I not writing plays anymore? And he was writing poetry, and his poetry was more personal than it had been in a long time. There's one line I remember of his when the GDR, the Germans voted the GDR out of existence, you know, his home country. He said, "Gone is the power against which my verse broke like waves, rainbow colored. Do you remember that line?
Yeah, I know it. I can tell you the whole one in German.
No, say.
Here? Yeah, okay. Oh,
But the microphone.
Yeah, no, I have to, because I was reading it in the last thing from here. Die Masken sind verbraucht. Fin de partie. Oh, ich krieg's nicht mehr hin. Die Masken sind verbraucht. Fin de partie. Zerstoben ist der Vers. Zerstoben ist die Macht, an der mein Vers sich brach. Regenbogenfarb. Willkommen in Vorkuta, Kommissar. Statt Mauern stehen Spiegel um mich her. Mein Blick sucht mein Gesicht, das Glas bleibt leer. So instead of walls, mirrors stand around me, and I try to find my face, but the mirror stays empty. So that's how it ends.
Yeah, he did say, if I remember right, that tragedies, are for kind of dictatorships. That's where these tragedies work. In capitalism, you can only write comedy, and he said, I'm not a comedy writer. He said, you can't. It's not the form he was then attuned to. But another thought, or Raphael.
First of all, thank you for the speech, and it was amazing to hear you. And I will point out that a question that you rose about the Heiner Müller, how he is important. I remember that when I was a student in Brazil, we didn't learn so much about Müller because my teacher, wow, it's so German, we need to find a way to Brazil to express our theater, that kind of things. But right now, we are dealing in Brazil with a political situation, the extreme right rising right now. And I saw a play of Heiner Müller 2 years ago in a huge festival in Brazil, The Mission. They called The Mission and 12 Fragments. And the cast were, there were all black people, and they are dealing with decolonization in the body of that black actors, and they use the words of Heiner Müller as a stone, but not to put somewhere, but to throw it in the ground, and it's a metaphor, of course, but they used Heiner Müller as a political subject to deal with the rise of the extreme right in Brazil. And I think it's a kind of appearance of Müller in another culture, because it's Brazil. I think Heiner Müller somewhere told it's a kind of Brazil and South America. It's an island of I don't know. I forgot the metaphor. It's an island of a disorder that the new could come, and some. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but I would like to make this comment, because of course he is important. Of course he could brought something to deal with this situation, and I think it's not just in Brazil, but maybe in the U.S. or somewhere else. And I would just like to bring this comment, and that's it.
Thank you so much.
Something else, a thought or a question? Maybe then we come close to the evening, but maybe tell us, both of you, what are your projects you're working on at the moment, and what? Oh, perhaps if someone would give you $1 million, what would you do to have the
another million and do more?
Yeah.
No, so
I would do a movie with $1 million.
Yeah, so we different things. So she has her projects, I have mine. So, and some things we do together. But so one thing what I already told is like a new edition of his works with manuscripts. So, and for this we meet like 18th of May, we meet 18 Müller experts in Kreuzberg to start that edition, just like a kick-off for that idea. So, and that's one thing, but we need to make the money and bring the money and all those things. And yeah, that's one thing. And then, so we have like that readings, which is like going on, and so then there's books with Surkamp, is like Müller in America, from Frank Radatz, which should be finished, I hope, next year. So, and so Anna is.
I'm planning the book about the strong women figures, actually. Yes, yeah. And also I'm planning a documentary. Yeah, I mean interviews mostly. It's really at the total beginning, but I've met with some production companies, and I'm kind of trying to. Me for myself, I call it kind of having a hobby with my father, kind of getting to know him, because I was 3 when he died. So it would be interesting for me to really have it as me exploring who my father is through his friends and colleagues and people that lived with him.
Yeah, I mean, the time testimonies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. So we have to do it now, or she has to do it now, because people just are very old and dying. So, and it's the time now to catch up the people who knew him and worked with him. So that's one thing.
And in the end, I would love to have a real movie. I mean, like a
next step,
like about his life, not a documentary.
Yeah. No, I mean
maybe even a mini-series. That would be actually my favorite version.
Yeah, mini-series. Yeah.
Like,
no,
like 100 years of Germany, 100 years of Heiner Müller, 3 systems.
Yeah.
You know, you could do it chronologically. It would work.
Yeah. And
so if you find that million, let me know.
Yeah, we will.
Okay. Yeah, you never know. You never know. So maybe, Anna, we could ask you to read an excerpt of the Hamlet Machine. I think you selected a piece, and this will be then the end of the evening. We're going to have a little reception here in the room. But
wait a second, I'm looking for one page. I mean, it's fine, I can do this part too. All good. Okay, Hamlet Machine, 1977. Television, the daily disgust at prepared nonsense, at official cheerfulness. How do you spell Gemütlichkeit? Give us this day our daily murder, for yours is the void. Disgust at the lies that are believed by the liars and no one else. Disgust at the lies that are believed. Disgust at the faces of the machas lined by the struggle for positions, votes, dollars. Disgust, a scythe chariot with flashing points. I pass through the streets, malls, faces scarred by the battle for consumption. Poverty without dignity. Poverty without the dignity of the knife, the brass knuckles, the fist, the humiliated bodies of the women, hope of the generation suffocated in blood, cowardice, stupidity, laughter from dead bellies. Heil Coca-Cola, a kingdom for a murderer. I was Macbeth, the king has offered me his third concubine. I knew every word on her hips. Raskolnikov, in my heart, under my only jacket, the hatchet for the only skull of the pawnbroker. In the loneliness of the airports, I take a deep breath. I am privileged. My disgust is a privilege, screened by the wall, barbed wire prison. Photograph of the author. I no longer want to eat, drink, breathe, love a woman, a man, a child, an animal. I no longer want to die. I no longer want to kill. The photograph of the author is torn up. I break open my sealed flesh. I want to live in my veins, in the marrow of my bones, in the labyrinth of my skull. I withdraw into my intestines. I sit down in my shit, my blood. Somewhere bodies are being broken so I can live in my shit. Somewhere bodies are being opened up so I can be alone with my blood. Thank you.
They're leaving tomorrow, so they really came in for us here. So
yeah,
it's
we're
a big
leaving
honor,
tomorrow.
So thank you.